The rain-slicked cobblestones of Rome betrayed me that night, sending me sprawling into a puddle that mirrored the shattered fragments of my life back home in Chicago. Heart pounding like a war drum, I scrambled to my feet just as headlights from a speeding Vespa sliced through the downpour, missing me by inches, a near-death whisper from the universe. Or maybe just fate's cruel joke on a guy who'd run across an ocean to escape himself. But then, strong hands gripped my arms, pulling me from the gutter, and in that electric moment, his eyes, hazel flecked with storm, held mine, and I knew. This stranger wasn't saving my body. He was about to unravel my soul. I gasped for air that tasted of espresso and ancient stone, my white shirt clinging like a second skin, translucent under the relentless Italian drizzle. "You okay?" His voice was a low rumble, accented with the rolling RS of a Roman born and bred, wrapping around me like the warmth of a forgotten hearth. I nodded dumbly, words failing as I took him in. "Luca," he introduced himself later, but in that instant, he was just a silhouette of salvation. Tall, broad-shouldered, his leather jacket beaded with rain, dark curls plastered to his forehead. 32, I'd learned, a local artist who painted murals on crumbling walls, capturing the ghosts of emperors in vibrant strokes. Me? Alex Harper, 25, a graphic designer from the windy streets of Chicago, who'd fled a dead-end job, a suffocating family, and the gnawing secret that I'd buried deeper than Pompeii's ashes. I was gay, and I'd never said it aloud. We stumbled into a nearby trattoria, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles flickering against Chianti bottles, the air thick with garlic and unspoken stories. Luca ordered us 2 glasses of deep red wine without asking, his fingers brushing mine as he slid the glass across the scarred wooden table. "To near misses," he toasted, his smile crooked, revealing a dimple that hit me like a gut punch. I clinked my glass, the liquid burning a path to my chest, loosening the knot I'd carried for years. We talked, or rather, he drew me out like a sketch from charcoal. I confessed the basics. The breakup with my girlfriend of 4 years, the one that had cracked open the chasm inside me, the impulse flight to Rome on a one-way ticket, chasing some romanticized notion of rebirth amid ruins. He listened, really listened, his hazel eyes never wavering, as if he could see the boy I'd been, the one who'd hidden crushes on high school teammates behind football cheers and fake laughs. By the time the rain eased to a patter, the piazza outside had emptied, leaving us the only souls under the stars that peeked through bruised clouds. Luca walked me to my cramped pensione near the Trevi fountain, his arm brushing mine in the narrow alleys, sending sparks I tried to ignore. "Rome finds the lost ones," he said softly, pausing under a wrought iron balcony dripping with jasmine. "And sometimes, it gives them back to themselves." His hand lingered on my shoulder, thumb tracing a lazy circle, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. That night, alone in my threadbare room with sheets that smelled of mothballs, I replayed his touch, his voice, the way his laugh had echoed off the stones. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with Colosseum shadows and forbidden glances, waking me with an ache I couldn't name, until dawn, when I realized. This wasn't just jet lag. This was awakening. The next morning, sunlight poured through my window like molten gold, gilding the rooftops and coaxing me out into a city that suddenly felt less like a maze and more like a map to my hidden self. I wandered back to the trattoria, half hoping, half dreading he'd be there. And he was, sketching in a worn leather notebook at the same corner table, his pencil flying across the page with the grace of a lover's caress. "Alex," he called, as if we'd known each other lifetimes, not hours. Over cornetti dusted with powdered sugar and frothy cappuccinos, he invited me to his studio, a sun-drenched loft above a gelateria in Trastevere, walls alive with half-finished canvases of lovers entwined under olive branches, faces raw with passion and pain. As we crossed the Tiber on foot, the bridge humming with tourists tossing coins into the murky waters below, Luca shared fragments of his own fractured mosaic. Born in the shadow of the Vatican, raised by a widowed mother who mended priests' robes, he'd hidden his desires in the confessional booths of his youth, whispering sins to stone saints who offered no absolution. At 18, a brutal beating from neighborhood thugs, fists fueled by whispers of his deviancy, had sent him to the hospitals, then to the streets, painting his rebellion on every wall he could reach. "Art saved me," he said, his voice cracking like thunder over the river. "It let me love without apology." I swallowed hard, my throat tight with echoes of my own silent screams, the taunts in locker rooms, the prayers for normalcy that left me hollow. By the time we climbed the creaky stairs to his studio, sweat beading on my skin from the July heat, something had shifted. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing with a certainty that stole my breath. Inside, The air hummed with turpentine and possibility. Sunbeams danced through skylights onto drop cloths splattered like abstract confessions. Easels holding portraits of men whose eyes held the same quiet fire as Luca's. He handed me a brush, dipped in cerulean blue, and guided my hand to a blank canvas. "Paint what scares you," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear, body close enough that I felt the heat radiating from him like a forge. My strokes were tentative at first, swirls of gray for the Chicago winters that had frozen my heart, slashes of red for the rage I'd swallowed. But as the afternoon bled into evening, with wine bottles emptying and laughter filling the spaces between, the colors bloomed. Vibrant greens for stolen glances, golds for the hope flickering in my chest. When our hands met again, paint-smeared and trembling, he didn't let go. Our first kiss was inevitable, a collision of lips salty with sweat and sweet with revelation, his stubble grazing my jaw as the world narrowed to the press of his chest against mine. That kiss lingered like the aftertaste of limoncello, tart, intoxicating, promising more. We tumbled onto the worn velvet sofa amid his canvases, hands exploring with the urgency of starved travelers at an oasis. Luca's touch was reverent, mapping the planes of my body as if committing me to memory, his whispers in Italian, bello, mio, weaving spells that unraveled my defenses. I arched into him, gasping as his fingers traced the curve of my hip, igniting fires I'd only dreamed of in shadowed motel rooms. For hours, we lost ourselves in the rhythm of skin on skin, the studio echoing with sighs and the creak of floorboards under our weight. It was messy, fervent, real, nothing like the polished fantasies I'd harbored. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of him, his head on my chest, I traced the scars on his knuckles, faint reminders of fists thrown in defense of his truth. I was so afraid. I admitted into the darkness, voice barely above a whisper. He lifted his head, eyes soft as moonlight. "Fear is the real exile, Alex. Love, it's the homecoming." But Rome, for all its eternal allure, wasn't built on fairy tales. The next days blurred into a haze of stolen moments. Lazy afternoons in the Borghese Gardens, where we'd feed each other grapes under cypress trees, his laughter chasing away the ghosts of my doubts. Midnight gelato runs along the Lungo de Vere, his arm around my waist as the river lapped at ancient embankments. Sketches he made of me sleeping, charcoal lines capturing the vulnerability I'd hidden from the world. Yet, beneath the romance, cracks began to spiderweb. My phone buzzed relentlessly, voicemails from my sister in Chicago, pleading for me to come home for Dad's birthday, her voice laced with the unspoken accusation, "You're running from us, Alex. From everything." And Luca? His ex, Marco, a brooding sculptor with a jealous streak wider than the Forum, started shadowing our paths, his glares like daggers from cafe corners. One evening, as we picnicked on the Spanish steps with prosciutto-wrapped figs and a bottle of Frascati, Marco appeared like a storm cloud, his face twisted in betrayal. "You always pick up strays, Luca," he sneered, eyes raking over me with contempt that hit too close to the taunts I'd endured back home. Luca stood, shielding me, his voice steady as marble. "This isn't about you anymore, Marco. Let it go." But the words hung heavy, and as Marco stormed off, I felt the weight of eyes upon us, the tourists whispering, the locals averting gazes. That night, in Luca's arms, I confessed the terror coiling in my gut. What if this is just a dream? What if I go back and can't face who I am? He held me tighter, his heartbeat a lullaby against my ear. "Then stay. Let Rome rewrite you." The idol shattered on a sweltering afternoon in the Colosseum shadow. I'd ventured out alone to sketch the arches, seeking solitude to wrestle my demons, when my phone lit up with a video from home. A clip of my ex-girlfriend, tear-streaked on Facebook Live, outing my confusion to our mutual friends, her words a venomous arrow. "He left me for some European fling. Guess he's always been a little off." The betrayal burned hotter than August sun on stone, my hands shaking as notifications flooded in. Condolences mixed with slurs from old classmates, my mother's missed call a silent scream. I fled into the labyrinthine streets of the Jewish ghetto, heart hammering, tears blurring the kosher signs and faded frescoes, until I collapsed against a synagogue wall, the weight of two worlds crashing down. Luca found me there, as if Rome's veins had guided him straight to my breaking point. He didn't ask questions. He simply knelt, pulling me into his lap amid the indifferent pigeons, his jacket enveloping us like a shield. "Tell me," he urged, fingers combing through my hair. And I did, pouring out the poison of small-town expectations, the closet I'd built brick by brick, the love I denied until his lips cracked it open. He listened, then shared his own abyss. The night Marco had turned violent, smashing canvases and Luca's spirit in a fit of possessive rage, leaving bruises that faded slower than the emotional ones. I thought love meant possession, Lucas said, voice raw. But you taught me it's freedom. We rose as dusk fell, hands clasped, and walked to the Tiber's edge, where he tossed my phone into the current, a symbolic drowning of the old Alex. Under the Ponte Sant'Angelo's angels, we kissed with desperate fire, bridging the chasm between fear and faith. Yet the storm wasn't done brewing. Marco's jealousy festered into something darker. Whispers reached Luca of threats scrawled on studio doors, shadows tailing him through markets. One night, as thunder rolled over the Pantheon, a brick crashed through Luca's window, shattering glass and a half-finished portrait of us. Our faces fractured like my resolve. Police came, took statements in broken English, but offered little solace. He's unhinged, Luca admitted over herbal tea in the dim kitchen, bandages on his cut hand. But leaving you? That's not an option. I wanted to believe him, but panic clawed at me. The visa expiring in weeks, the pull of family obligations, the terror that this fragile happiness was just another illusion. Sleepless, I slipped out at dawn, wandering the deserted forum, dew-kissed columns whispering of fallen empires and loves lost to time. By noon, Luca tracked me down, his face pale with worry. Don't run from this. From us, he pleaded, gripping my arms. Fight for it, Alex. Like I fought for you. The confrontation came swift as a gladiator's strike. Marco cornered us outside the studio 2 days later, rain lashing like whips, his eyes wild with wine and wrath. You think you can steal him? He roared at me, lunging with a bottle shard glinting lethal in the streetlight. Time slowed, Luca shoving me aside, the sickening thud of glass meeting flesh as it grazed his arm, blood blooming dark on his shirt. I screamed, red haze descending, tackling Marco to the wet stones in a frenzy of fists and fury. Sirens wailed distant, then near, as Luca pulled me off, his wound superficial but the scar on our bond deeper. In the ER's sterile glow, stitches closing the gash, Luca squeezed my hand. See? We're unbreakable. Marco was arrested, his rage finally caged, but the incident unearthed my deepest fracture, the fear that love like ours invited only pain. Discharged at midnight, we limped to a quiet enoteca overlooking the Vatican, its domes silhouetted against a clearing sky. Over glasses of grappa that burned away the night's chill, I laid bare my soul's ledger, the guilt over abandoning my family, the dread of returning to a life that would demand I shrink. Luca traced the lines of my palm, his touch a balm. Family isn't blood, it's the ones who see you whole, he said, voice thick with his own losses. And you, Alex, you're my masterpiece. Dawn found us on the studio roof, wrapped in a shared blanket, watching the city stir. In that fragile peace, I decided, I'd extend my stay, bridge the oceans with video calls, start the hard work of coming out. Not for Rome, but for the man who'd taught me courage wore many faces, some scarred, some painted, all beautiful. Weeks melted into a rhythm of healing and heat. Luca's arm mended under my clumsy bandages, his laughter returning as we coaxed life back into the shattered portrait, adding layers of gold leaf for the resilience we'd forged. I dove into freelance designs inspired by his murals, digital frescoes blending Chicago skylines with Roman vines, sold to galleries that saw the fusion as fresh genius. Letters from home arrived tentative, my sister's apology for prying, my mother's quiet pride in a forwarded article about my work. Emboldened, I Skyped them one crisp October evening, Luca's hand in mine off camera. Mom, Dad, there's someone. A man. And he makes me. Me. Silence stretched, then tears, then embraces promised across miles. We've always loved you, kiddo, Dad choked out. Just be happy. As autumn leaves turned the parks to fire, our love deepened roots. We traveled the city's underbelly, hidden catacombs where early Christians etched prayers of defiance, echoing our own quiet rebellions. Sunset sails on the Tyrrhenian Sea, where Luca proposed we make this permanent, his ring a simple silver band etched with intertwined vines. Marry me in the ways that matter, he whispered, salt spray kissing our lips. I said yes, not to vows on paper, but to a life woven together. Him teaching me Italian curses over pasta, me showing him Chicago blues on a battered guitar shipped from home. Yet the true test came with winter's bite. News from Chicago, Dad's heart attack, a summons I couldn't ignore. Packing my bag in the loft's chill, snow dusting the skylight, I braced for goodbye. Luca drove me to Fiumicino, the autostrada a blur of olive groves under gray skies. At the gate, he pulled me close, forehead to forehead. This isn't ending, it's expanding. Our kiss was a vow, fierce, tear-salted, promising returns. On the plain, Rome shrinking below like a lover's silhouette, I clutched the sketch he'd slipped into my pocket. Us, arms linked, striding eternal streets, labeled home. Back in Chicago's relentless wind, the transition was jagged, suburban dinners where eyes darted curiously, work meetings laced with sideways glances. But Luca's daily calls were anchors, his voice bridging the Atlantic like a lifeline. I came out fully. At a family barbecue, words tumbling free amid potato salad and awkward hugs, to colleagues over craft beers, their toasts warming the chill of acceptance earned. And when spring bloomed, I flew back, not as a visitor, but a builder. We opened a joint studio in Trastevere, my digital edges softening into his oils, clients flocking to the queer love stories we captured on canvas and code. Years later, on our 5th anniversary, we returned to that rain-slicked piazza, now etched in our shared memory. Under the same arches, with a canvas between us, painted with the arc of our journey, from lost boy to found man, Luca raised a glass. To strangers who become everything. I pulled him close, the city humming approval, knowing the truth. Rome hadn't just found me. It had shown me that love, in all its kitsch-tin glory, was the ultimate rebellion, the one that sets you free. The piazza's eternal fountain bubbled like a heartbeat as Luca and I stood there, the weight of 5 years lifting like morning mist over the Tiber. But anniversaries aren't just remembrances, they're reckonings, and ours carried an undercurrent of something unspoken, a shadow from Marco's ghost, or perhaps the deeper fear that happiness, once grasped, could slip like wet cobblestones. We built a life mosaic. Mornings grinding coffee in our sunlit kitchen, afternoons lost in collaborative art sessions where my vectors danced with his impasto, evenings wandering hand-in-hand through lantern-lit alleys, unapologetic in our affection. Yet, as tourists milled around us, oblivious to the history we'd inscribed here, Luca's hazel eyes held a flicker of unrest. "Alex," he said, voice low, "there's something we need to face." We retreated to a nearby gelateria, the chill of pistachio cones a counterpoint to the summer swelter, and he confessed, an exhibition in New York, a queer art collective inviting his work, and mine. "It's a chance to bring us stateside," he explained, excitement warring with hesitation. "But it means months away from Rome, diving into your world on its terms." My stomach twisted, echoes of that first flight home resurfacing. The probing questions from family, the microaggressions at industry mixers, the isolation of being the expat comeback kid with an Italian husband-to-be. We'd married quietly last spring in a Trastevere courtyard, vows exchanged under blooming wisteria with a handful of friends, no fanfare, just us against the world. But America? It loomed like a colossus, demanding I integrate Luca into the fabric of my past without unraveling the threads we'd woven. The decision fermented over the following weeks, our loft a cocoon of debate and desire. Nights, we'd make love with renewed fervor, bodies a language when words failed, his hands pinning mine above my head, whispers of ti amo mingling with my gasps of release. Days, we'd walk the Appian Way, ancient pines whispering secrets of endurance, debating logistics, visas, galleries, the risk of Marco's parole hearing coinciding with our trip. "He's done his time," Luca insisted, though his scars ached in phantom pains. "And we're stronger." I nodded, but doubt gnawed. Had I truly shed the boy who'd fled, or was I still piecing together a self from borrowed boldness? The flight to New York was a portal, jet lag blurring continents as we touched down in a city that pulsed with chaotic energy, a far cry from Rome's languid grace. My sister, Elena, met us at JFK, her hug fierce, eyes appraising Luca with sisterly scrutiny that softened into warmth over dim sum in Chinatown. "He's a keeper," she murmured, linking arms with me as we strolled Central Park, leaves turning crimson underfoot. Dad, recovered but frilier, grilled Luca on soccer, football, he corrected with a grin, over backyard barbecues in our suburban split level. Mom's apple pie a peace offering for years of unspoken tensions. "We see how you look at each other," she said one evening, tears glistening. Like we should have looked at each other. The acceptance was hard-won, laced with awkward questions about how it works, but real, a bridge mended, not perfect, but passable. The exhibition opened in Chelsea, a warehouse gallery throbbing with the city's queer underbelly. Drag queens in feathered headdresses mingling with suited collectors, walls alive with our joint pieces, digital romantic hybrids of Roman arches pixelated into Manhattan grids, lovers' embraces glitching between cultures. Luca's mural, a massive fresco of two men entwined amid Colosseum ruins and Brooklyn bridges, drew gasps and bids, my accompanying animations looping their story in hypnotic code. Standing amid the crowd, his hand in mine, pride swelled, until Marco's face flashed on a tablet screen, a news alert. Early release, heading to New York for rehabilitation art therapy. The coincidence chilled me, while rising as old fears resurfaced. We ignored it at first, losing ourselves in the after-party's haze, cocktails at Stonewall, Dancing under disco balls that spun like stars, Luca's body pressed to mine in a rhythm that drowned doubts. But the next morning, over bagels in our Soho loft rental, a knock shattered the illusion. Marco stood there, gaunt and tattooed, eyes hollow but burning. "I just want to see the work," he lied, voice oily. Luca's face drained of color, but he stepped forward, blocking the door. "Not like this. Not ever." Words escalated. Marco's accusations of theft, of Luca selling out to an American pretty boy, until fists clenched and I shoved between them, heart thundering. "Enough!" I roared, the echo of that Roman alley fight reverberating. Police arrived, statements taken, Marco carted off with warnings, but the intrusion left us raw, barricaded in the loft like besieged gladiators. In the aftermath, vulnerability cracked us open. Curled on the futon, Luca wept, tears for the man he'd loved once, now twisted by regret, for the violence that had defined too much of his youth. "I thought I was past this," he choked, my arms his harbor. I held him, rocking gently, then shared my own fracture, the email from an old friend, resurfacing photos from college parties, mocking my phase, with captions that stung. "They think we're a joke," I admitted. "But you're my truth." Dawn brought clarity. We hired a mediator, confronted Marco in a neutral cafe under supervised eyes. His apology was halting, laced with deflection, but the act of facing him together forged steel in our spines. "I forgive you," Luca said finally, voice steady. "For me, not you." Marco left, a ghost exorcised, and in that release, we reclaimed the city. New York tested us, but it tempered too. The exhibition's success spawned commissions, murals for Brooklyn Pride parades, apps visualizing queer histories for museums. Family bonds strengthened. Elena officiating a stateside vow renewal in Central Park, Dad sketching amateur portraits of us with shaky hands. And love? It evolved, deeper than desire. Quiet mornings reading the Times aloud, Luca's head in my lap. Spontaneous road trips to the Berkshires, where we'd hike mist-shrouded trails, hands linked against the world's weight. Yet, as summer waned, homesickness tugged, for Rome's honeyed light, the loft's familiar creaks. "We don't choose one life," Luca said one evening, skyline glittering beyond our window. "We blend them." The return flight was bittersweet, New York fading like a dream deferred. Back in Trastevere, the studio welcomed us with dust motes dancing in sunbeams, canvases begging for new strokes. We dove in, infusing American grit into Italian grace, pieces of skyline spires piercing Vatican domes, lovers bridging oceans in bold primaries. Word spread. A documentary crew filmed our story, from ruins to renewal, airing to acclaim that humanized the struggles we'd survived. Marco faded into irrelevance, his path diverging to quiet corners we no longer haunted. One crisp November day, as frost rhymed the fountain where we'd met, I knelt before Luca, a velvet box in hand, not silver this time, but gold, etched with coordinates of Chicago and Rome. "Marry me properly," I said, voice thick. In both our worlds, tears traced his cheeks as he pulled me up, kiss sealing the promise. Our wedding, months later, was a tapestry. Trastevere ceremony with Roman kin, then Chicago reception under autumn oaks, families mingling like colors on a palette. Vows echoed our journey. In shadows and light, lost and found, I choose you. Life unfolded in waves. Biennial shuttles between cities, a hybrid home in each. Collaborations that spanned galleries from the Met to the Maxi. Quiet joys like adopting a scruffy terrier named Nero, who trotted between studios with equal loyalty. Challenges came. Health scares, creative droughts, the world's relentless judgments. But we met them entwined, our love a bulwark. And in stolen moments, like sketching by the Tiber or skyline picnics, I'd catch Luca's eye, that first hazel spark reigniting, reminding me, the stranger who'd pulled me from the rain hadn't just changed my life. He'd illuminated it, proving that in the labyrinth of self, true north is found not alone, but in another's gaze. Years wove us tighter, but time, that sly thief, began to pilfer the edges. At 30, I stared down the mirror in our Rome loft, crow's feet etching laugh lines around eyes that had seemed too much joy to regret, yet a restlessness stirred, like the boy who'd first fled Chicago, whispering of unfinished business. Luca, 37 now, his curls threaded with silver, sensed it over breakfast one morning, his foot nudging mine under the table. "Talk to me, amore." I confessed the itch. A novel, words to capture our odyssey, not just in paint and pixels, but prose that could reach the closets I'd escaped. "Write it," he urged, hazel eyes alight. "Let the world see what I see in you." The project consumed me, pages spilling like wine at a feast, manuscript titled Echoes of the Eternal, a semi-autobiographical tale of a lost American finding love in Roman arms, laced with the raw edges of coming out, violence, redemption. Luca became my muse and editor, reading drafts by firelight, his critiques gentle as his touches. More heart, he'd say, pulling me onto his lap, kisses punctuating revisions. Elena Beta-Reed from Chicago, her notes fierce with love. My agent, a sharp-witted lesbian from Brooklyn, snatched it for a mid-five-figure deal. As galleys printed, excitement bubbled, but so did anxiety, the specter of exposure looming large. Launch night in a Vatican-adjacent bookstore was electric. Shelves groaning under stacks of my book, friends toasting with Prosecco, Luca beaming from the front row. Readings drew crowds, queer youth with wide eyes, elders nodding in recognition, my voice cracking on passages of that first kiss, the brick through the window. Reviews poured in. A luminous debut, blending romance's fire with memoir's grit, proclaimed the New York Times. But not all were kind. Conservative outlets decried it as propaganda, online trolls dredging my past for ammunition. One night, scrolling venomous comments, fairy tale for freaks, I shattered, hurling my phone against the wall, shards mirroring my fracturing calm. Luca found me on the studio floor, knees to chest, sobs racking. He gathered me wordlessly, carrying me to bed, his body a fortress as I raged against the world's cruelty. They don't get it, I wept. How you saved me. How we save each other. Don brought his plan, a cross-continental book tour, him as my shadow, turning attacks into dialogues. Your words are weapons of light, he said, bandaging my knuckles from the outburst. Wield them with me. Grateful, I leaned into him, our love-making a reclamation, slow, deliberate, his lips mapping insecurities until pleasure rebuilt what hate had chipped. The tour was a gauntlet. Rome signings and sun-dappled piazzas, where fans gifted us olive wreaths. London panels with activists who shared their scars, forging alliances. Chicago homecoming at a bustling Loop bookstore. Family in attendance. Dad's proud grip on my shoulder worth every slur. In L.A., a heckler stormed a Q&A, Bible in hand, spewing fire about sodomite stories corrupting youth. Before security could intervene, Luca rose, voice thunderous. Love isn't corruption. Silence is the sin. The room erupted in applause, the man slinking away, and later, in our hotel suite overlooking the Pacific, I worshipped him, tongue tracing the lines of his body, gratitude spilling in moans that echoed off waves. Success swelled, bestseller lists, film option whispers, invitations to TEDx stages where I spoke on love as cartography, mapping paths from isolation to intersection. But fame's glare revealed fissures. Luca's quiet envy of my spotlight, his own stalled solo show, my guilt over dragging him through my whirlwind, away from easels gathering dust. One rainy Paris night, post-reading in a left-bank cafe, it boiled over. I feel like your accessory, he admitted, voice small over croissants. The exotic husband in the bio. Stung, I fired back. And I feel like I'm chasing validation to prove us right. Words flew like daggers, doors slamming as I stormed to the Seine, rain mingling with tears, bridges arching like accusations. Reconciliation came at dawn, Luca finding me on Pont Neuf, coat draped over shivering shoulders. We're not perfect, he said, pulling me close, the river's murmur underscoring his words. But we're us, flaws and all. We talked for hours, raw and unfiltered, his fear of fading into my shadow, my terror of losing him to resentment. Vows renewed, no, evolved, dedicated time for his art, co-authored projects to blend our voices. Back in Rome, we cleared the studio, starting fresh with a massive collaborative piece. Tandem, two figures rowing a boat through stormy seas to calm harbors, each stroke a testament to balance. The painting sold for a fortune at auction, proceeds funding a scholarship for queer artists in developing worlds, our humanist heart beating through brush and bid. Life settled into enriched harmony, mornings writing beside Luca's easel, our silences companionable, evenings hosting salon dinners for expat creatives, laughter weaving new tapestries. Nero, our terrier, gray-muzzled now, curled at our feet, a living emblem of steadfast love. And when Elena announced her pregnancy, inviting us to be godparents, joy crested, a next generation to nurture with the truths we'd claimed. Yet, as autumn gilded the city once more, a whisper of mortality stirred. Luca's annual checkup revealed a shadow on his lung. Benign, the doctor assured, but a biopsy loomed. Waiting rooms became our new battlefield, my hand in his as needles probed, results pending like swords of Damocles. Sleepless, I'd trace his chest in bed, memorizing the rise and fall, whispering gratitudes for every breath. If it's bad, he joked weakly one night. Promise you'll paint over my grave with rainbows. I silenced him with a kiss, fierce and claiming, no graves. Only us, forever. The all-clear came on a crystalline December day, tears of relief salting our embrace in the clinic's sterile hall. See, Luca grinned, dimple flashing. Even fate knows we're unfinished. We celebrated with a pilgrimage to the Trevi, tossing coins not for return, but for eternity, too, linked, sinking to the fountain's depths. That night, in the loft aglow with fairy lights, we made love like it was our first. Exploratory, worshipful, bodies affirming life's fragility and fire. Afterward, tangled and sated, I murmured, "You've changed everything." He chuckled, fingers in my hair. No, Bello, we changed each other. Spring unfurled in Rome like a lover's promise, petals carpeting the paths where Luca and I wandered, Nero trotting ahead with puppyish vigor despite his years. The biopsy shadow had passed, but it left us attuned to time's fleetness, savoring sunsets from our rooftop, cooking feasts of risotto and ribs that fused our heritages, dreaming aloud of legacies beyond canvas and code. My novel's film adaptation greenlit, casting calls buzzing from LA, but we vowed boundaries. No uprooting, just visits. Our home the eternal anchor. Rome raised us, Luca said one evening, wineglass raised to the stars. Now we raise it back. Philanthropy became our canvas. The scholarship we'd funded blossomed into the Harper Luca Foundation, grants empowering LGBTQ+ creators from Lagos to Lima, workshops in virtual reality storytelling, residencies in reclaimed spaces. Our first cohort arrived in Trastevere, a trans poet from Tehran with verses sharp as shrapnel, a non-binary filmmaker from Manila weaving documentaries of defiance. Hosting them in our loft, sharing meals scarred by stories of exile and ecstasy, reignited our fire. Late nights, Luca and I would slip away to the studio, inspired, creating Echo Chamber, an installation of mirrored panels reflecting viewers' faces into scenes of queer resilience, ourselves among them, frozen in that first rain-soaked gaze. Word of the foundation spread, drawing collaborators. Elena, now a mother to toddler Sophia, flew in with her wife for a grant panel, her legal eagle eye sharpening applications. Dad, retired and rediscovering watercolors, contributed naive portraits of the kids, as he called our grantees. Family wove closer. Thanksgiving in Chicago with Italian twists on turkey, Christmas in Rome with lights strung like Colosseum arches. But joy's height invites tempests. Midway through a foundation gala in a Palazzo's Turn museum, my phone vibrated with dread. Elena's text. Dad collapsed. Stroke. Come home. The flight was agony. Luca's hand my tether through turbulence literal and emotional. Chicago General's Hall smelled of antiseptic and regret. Dad pale in his bed, left side weakened but spirit unbroken. Mom's vigil a portrait of endurance. Foolish old man, he rasped, squeezing my right hand. Luca hovering like a sentinel. Should have listened to the doc about that third slice of pie. Laughter cracked the tension, but rehab stretched months. Physical therapy sessions where I'd wheel him through Grant Park, Luca charming nurses with mangled Italian jokes, Elena and I tag-teaming care with Sophia's giggles as balm. In quiet moments, Dad confessed regrets. Missed too much, son. Hiding behind work, not seeing you. Tears flowed, forgiveness a river washing clean. You're seeing me now, I said, and meant it. Husband at my side, family mending like a well-loved quilt. Luca thrived in the chaos, his artist's eye finding beauty in hospital still lives, wilted flowers defiant in vases, monitors beeping symphonies of survival. He painted Dad's portrait there, capturing the crinkle of determination in his eyes, a gift that hung in their living room upon discharge. But distance strained us, video calls fraught with static and sighs, my focus splintered between bedside and boardroom. One night, alone in my childhood bedroom, posters faded ghosts of teen angst, loneliness clawed. I miss your skin, I whispered to Luca's pixelated face. Come back to me. He did, booking a red-eye, arriving to fold me into arms that smelled of espresso and home. Reunited, we turned rehab into ritual. Mornings yoga in the park, Luca leading flows that eased Dad's stiffness. Afternoons sketching urban vignettes, his pencil coaxing smiles from Sophia. Yet, cracks in our foundation surfaced. Foundation emails piling, grantees awaiting, Rome calling like a siren's song. We're spread thin, Luca admitted over deep dish pizza, cheese stretching like our limits. Time to prioritize. Decisions crystallized. Delegate more. Hire a coordinator. Plan a foundation satellite in Chicago, blending worlds without breaking. Dad's recovery milestone, a shaky walk unaided, coincided with the opening, his ribbon cut a triumph, tears mingling with applause. Healing rippled outward. Mom, inspired, joined a local LGBTQ alliance, volunteering at Pride events with flyers for our foundation. Elena's family grew. Sophia's first words, Zio Luca, a melody that bridged oceans. Back in Rome, the loft felt expansive, infused with American echoes. A Bears jersey on the coat rack, deep dish recipes scrawled on fridge notes. We dove into Diaspora Dreams, a series exploring migration's heart. Paintings of transatlantic lovers, animations of family ties stretched but unbroken. Critics hailed it as a queer odyssey for the global age. Sales funding expanded grants. Summer brought a pilgrimage. Family reunion in the Berkshires, cabins rented by a lake mirror smooth as vows. Days hiking wildflower trails, Luca teaching Sophia to skip stones, Dad's laugh booming freer. Nights bonfires where stories spun, my coming out, Luca's beatings, Elena's wedding jitters, binding us in shared humanity. One evening, as fireflies danced, Dad pulled me aside. You gave me a second chance, kid, by being brave first. His hug, strong despite the limp, sealed it. Love's true value in mending, not perfection. Return to Rome was renewal. Nero greeted us with tail wags frenzied, the studio a sanctuary awaiting. Yet, autumn winds carried change, an offer for me to teach at NYU's Tisch, guest lectures on digital narrative. Go, Luca encouraged, though his eyes shadowed. Teach them what we know, stories safe. I demurred, countering with a joint residency at the American Academy, months in Rome with visiting slots in New York. Balance struck, we thrived, lectures co-led, students mentored in hybrid arts, our marriage a masterclass in partnership. As winter blanketed the city in rare snow, we hosted a foundation solstice party. Grantees, family via Zoom, candles flickering like stars. Toasts rang. To strangers who become kin. And in Luca's arms, swaying to jazz from a crackly speaker, I knew. Life's plot twists, from Rainslick Falls to Family Falls, had scripted not just survival, but symphony. The boy lost in streets had found not one stranger, but a constellation, each light a lesson in loving loud, living whole. Decades turn crept like ivy over our lives, vines of routine entwining with wild growths of adventure. At 35, my reflection held a man's assurance. Lines from laughter, not loss. While Luca, 42, wore his silver like laurels, his art bolder, body still a map I navigated nightly with reverent hands. The foundation flourished, chapters in Berlin and Sao Paulo, our names synonymous with queer empowerment. Yet, complacency's whisper tempted. Had passion cooled to embers? One spring morning, over Cornetti in the piazza, Luca voiced it. Let's shake the snow globe, amore. Adventure awaits. His idea. A sabbatical, 6 months vagabonding, trails of Patagonia, markets of Marrakesh, beaches of Bali, reigniting the spark that Rome had first kindled. I hesitated, foundation duties and family pulls tugging, but his hazel eyes, alight with mischief, won. For us, he said, kissing my knuckles. Before Sophia asks why her Zios never have tan lines. Laughter sealed it. We plotted like conspirators, visas stamped, backpacks stuffed with sketchpads and laptops. Farewell dinner with Elena's family via video. Sophia's pouts at our absence melting into excitement for postcards. Then dawn departure, hands linked on the train to Fiumicino. Patagonia hit like a gale, Torres del Paine's granite spires piercing cerulean skies, winds whipping our scarves as we hiked glacier paths. Luca sketched condors wheeling overhead, wings spans echoing freedom. I coded quick animations of ice calving into milky lakes, our campfire tales blending brushstrokes with bites. Nights in refugios, bodies warmed by shared sleeping bags, love-making urgent against the raw wild, his gasps mingling with wind howls, my fingers digging into earth-scented skin. This is us, he panted, climax shuddering through us like tectonic shifts. Untamed. Marrakesh's souks enveloped next, a sensory assault of spices and silks, donkey carts clattering through Medina labyrinths. We bartered for tagines with a Berber artisan who, upon learning our story, gifted us a hand-woven rug. For lovers who wander. In Riyadh courtyards tiled azure, Luca painted Riyadh shadows dancing on walls. I scripted AR overlays for tourists to see, queer histories hidden in arches. But tension simmered. A pickpocket swarm separated us in Jima El Fna, panic flashing as I searched frantic amid snake charmers and storytellers. Luca emerged unscathed, but the scare unearthed old wounds, my fear of loss, his of entrapment. Over mint tea in a hidden hammam, steam curling like confessions, we aired it. I can't lose you to the crowd, I admitted. He cupped my face, water beating on lashes. Then hold tighter. Always. Bali tempered the intensity, Ubud's rice terraces a green symphony, monkeys chattering in sacred forests. Yoga retreats honed our breaths in sync, poses flowing into private asanas on villa verandas, downward dogs dissolving into missionary, sweat slick and sacred. Luca collaborated with local shadow puppeteers, infusing wayang kulit with queer narratives. I developed an app mapping LGBTQ plus safe spaces across Asia, beta tested with Balinese allies. Monsoon rains confined us to bed for days, thunder a percussion to our rhythm, bodies rediscovering contours softened by time, but no less electric. Aging with you, Luca murmured, tracing my temples silver, is the finest art. Midway, news from home pierced the idyll. Dad's passing, quiet in sleep after a full day gardening. Grief teleported us back. Chicago's gray skies appall over the funeral parlor. Eulogies flowed, Elena's of his quiet evolution, Mom's of hands that built cradles and mended hearts. Mine, whispered at graveside, of the father who'd learned to see. Luca stood sentinel, his presence a translation of sorrow into solace. He was proud, he said later, holding me as rain fell like Rome's first storm. Of the life you built. We stayed weeks, sorting his study, letters yellowed with love, photos of us framed beside family portraits, then scattered his ashes in Lake Michigan, waves carrying him to eternity. Return to the road was hesitant, Bali's bomb resuming with deeper gratitude. In Thailand's hill tribes, we trekked elephant sanctuaries, no rides, just ethical brushes. Luca's watercolors capturing Mahout's gentle bonds, mine digitizing folklore for preservation. A queer couple from the village, married in secret ceremonies, shared their hut for stories swapped over papaya salads. Their resilience mirrored ours, forging friendships that spanned continents via WhatsApp. But physical tolls mounted, Luca's knee twinging on Chiang Mai climbs, my back protesting from backpack weight. We're not 20 anymore, I joked, rubbing salve into his calf by lantern light. He pulled me atop, grin wicked. Good. Experience counts. The sabbatical crested in Iceland's otherworldly glow, Reykjavik's harbors bobbing with boats under northern lights. Geothermal pools steamed like cauldrons, our dips nude and unashamed, bodies buoyant as auroras danced overhead. Luca's final sketches, volcanic blacks slashed with emerald veils, my wrap-up code. A VR tour of our journey, Wander Love, for the Foundation's site. New Year's Eve, in a geothermal heated cabin, we toasted with Icelandic Brennivin, firewater fitting our inferno, vows renewed under plasma skies. To decades more, wild and woven. Homecoming to Rome was revelation, the loft unchanged, yet we transformed, tanned, tattooed, matching vines on wrists, souls scoured clean. Nero's joyous reunion yips echoed our joy. Elena's visit with Sophia brought toddler hugs and tales of Zio adventures. We channeled the trip into global threads, a traveling exhibit, canvases of foreign landscapes queered, interactives mapping safe passages for migrants. Opening night drew throngs, reviews lauding a love letter to the world, from two hearts that beat as one. Post-sabbatical life pulsed renewed, Foundation expansions to refugee camps, my second novel charting our vagabondage, Luca's retrospective at the Capitoline Museums. Family milestones dotted the calendar, Sophia's school play, Mom's remarriage to a widower with a penchant for pasta. Intimacy evolved too, slower seductions, massages melting into unions profound, whispers of futures laced with remember whens and what ifs. One golden evening, as we picnicked in Villa Borghese, prosciutto and prosecco, Nero snoozing, Luca turned serious. Kids? He ventured, voice tentative. Surprise bloomed. We'd skirted it, surrogacy logistics daunting. But with Elena's encouragement, paths opened, fostering a teen from our grants, a gender-fluid artist fleeing homeland hate. Kai arrived wary, 16 and tattooed with survival's ink, but thawed over gelato runs and studio sessions. Parenting was chaos, teen angst clashing with our rhythms, midnight talks on identity mirroring my own youth. Yet, watching Luca braid Kai's hair or me debug their code, family redefined, not blood, but chosen constellation. Challenges persisted. Kai's coming out at school sparking backlash, echoing our scars, Foundation scandals with a rogue grantee embezzling funds, testing our trust. But we navigated as unit, therapy circles, community rallies, audits transparent. Through it, love deepened, Kai's grin our reward. You guys are lame, but epic. As autumn waned, Kai's first exhibit, hybrids of our styles, titled Inherited Fires, hung in a youth gallery. Standing amid admirers, Luca's arm around my waist, Kai's hand in his, I marveled. The stranger from the rain had multiplied miracles, turning one lost soul into a legacy of light. Life's streets, twisted as Rome's, led here, to home, not a place, but a heartbeat shared. Midlife's mirror gleamed sharper in our 50th year. Mine 45, Luca's 52. Reflections etched with wisdom's patina, bodies softer, but stories steelier. Kai, 22 now, thrived at art school in Berlin, their video installations critiquing borders with fierce poetry we'd mentored. The foundation spanned continents, a beacon for thousands. Our home, expanded loft with a guest wing for visiting grantees, hummed with purpose. Yet, a quiet ache stirred. Legacies wait, the tick of clocks urging what next. Over espresso one dawn, Luca voiced it. A memoir, together. Our full arc, from that puddle to this paradise. The project ignited us, interviews taped in sun-dappled cafes, chapters co-written on tandem laptops. His prose lyrical as frescoes, mine punchy as pixels. Strangers no more poured out, raw recitals of closets cracked, fists flown, flights taken, tender tapestries of travels, tantrums tamed, triumphs tasted. Elena contributed forewords, Mom afterwards peppered with pie recipes. Kai designed a cover, interlocking vines in digital gold. As galleys circulated, vulnerability loomed, bearing souls to scrutiny, inviting judgments we'd long outrun. Publication frenzy hit like a Sirocco. Launches in Rome and New York, podcasts probing our secrets to staying smitten, TED Talks tag-teamed on Love's Long Game. Fans flooded inboxes, letters from elders who'd hidden loves, youth charting outs thanks to our words. But backlash bit. A viral op-ed branding us, privileged peddlers, ignoring our scars for sound bites. Sleepless, I paced the loft, Luca drawing me back to bed. Their noise, he murmured, lips on my neck. We're symphony. Lovemaking followed, reaffirming, his hands knowledgeable on my curves, my mouth worshipful of his lines, climaxes crashing like waves on Amalfi shores. Kai's crisis interrupted the whirl. A bad breakup with a toxic partner, echoes of Marco's menace, sending them fleeing to Rome for solace. We enveloped them, therapy sourced, studio space cleared for rage paintings, slashed in crimson. Nights, the three of us huddled with wine and what-ifs, Luca's stories of his own heartbreaks a bridge to healing. Love hurts, he told Kai, arm around their shoulders. But it heals too, if you let it. Watching them mend, resilience blooming like wisteria, swelled pride. Our family, forged in fire, unbreakable. Global ripples followed. The memoir sparked a docuseries, Eternal Strangers, filming our daily, market halls, mentor meetings, midnight sketches. Crew captured intimacies, a stolen kiss in Trastevere. Arguments aired and aired out, humanizing the myth. Airing to Emmy's buzz, it amplified voices, grantee spotlights, family cameos, Kai's arc from foster to filmmaker. Yet, filming unearthed ghosts, Luca's knee surgery sidelining hikes, my creeping presbyopia blurring screens, forcing adaptations, canes for cobblestones, audiobooks for edits. Aging's just another adventure. Luca quipped post-op, crutches clicking like castanets. I massaged his calf, kisses trailing higher, turning rehab to romance. Mom's health faltered next, a fall fracturing hip and heart, pulling us stateside. Chicago's assisted living gleamed sterile, but we infused warmth. Luca hanging his mini murals, me streaming Italian operas. Her decline was gentle, stories her currency. You boys taught me love's no straight line. Final days, we flanked her bed, hands linked across continents via Elena's iPad. Sophia's lullabies a soft underscore. Passing at dawn, she slipped peaceful, leaving a journal of clippings. Our reviews, pride photos, a testament to growth. Funeral wove us tighter, eulogies echoing her evolution, from tentative ally to fierce advocate. Grief's tide ebbed in waves, Rome's rhythms restorative. We channeled loss into bridges of memory, a foundation initiative honoring elders' tales, oral histories archived, murals memorializing. Kai curated the launch, their film, Threads Unraveled, premiering to tears. Success cascaded, grants for senior queer housing, partnerships with AARP's LGBTQ arm. Personally, we leaned in, couples retreats in Tuscany, vineyard vows whispered amid grapes, sensual workshops rekindling touch, blindfolds heightening senses worn by time. A surprise-crested summer, Elena's second child, a boy named after dad, with Luca as godfather. Christening in Chicago blended rituals, Catholic sprinkles with humanist toasts, Sophia flower girl in a frock of her choosing. Holding the infant, Luca's eyes misted. Think we could. Adoption whispers resurfaced, but Kai's quip, you're ancient, stick to mentoring, sparked laughs, affirming our path. Instead, we fostered again. A pair of siblings, trans girl and cis brother, 8 and 10, wariness yielding to trust over pizza nights and park swings. Parenting anew stretched us, school runs clashing with deadlines, tantrums testing tempers, but joy multiplied. Lila's drawings adorning fridge, Miko's soccer goals cheered from sidelines. Luca coached, balls flying wild. I coded educational games, pixels teaching pronouns. Family dinners devolved to chaos, Nero begging scraps, kids chatter drowning debates, yet anchored us, love's mess magnificent. Challenges loomed, foundation audit revealing mismanagement, reputations rocked. We testified transparent, reforms rigorous, emerging leaner, lessons in accountability etched. Kai's career skyrocketed, a Berlin Biennale invite, while we navigated empty nest pangs as Foster's aged out supported. Through intimacy endured, anniversary getaways to Santorini, cliffside villas where we'd swim nude, bodies buoyant in Aegean blues, nights of tantric exploration, breaths synced in ecstasy's tide. As leaves fell, we walked the forum, hands clasped, Nero's successor, a rescue pup named Vespa, trotting. From lost to legion, Luca mused, arm around me. I nodded, heart full. The stranger's rescue had rippled infinite, lives touched, loves launched. In twilight's gold, we kissed, timeless, tender, eternal as the stones beneath. Twilight's hush settled over our lives as 60 beckoned. 55 for me, 62 for Luca, years a rich patina on souls still sparking. Kai, 37, helmed the Foundation's Berlin branch, their family a vibrant echo, spouse and 2 kids, video calls chaotic with toddler German. Lila and Miko, young adults now, charted paths, her in fashion design queering couture, him in environmental engineering, green tech for safe havens. Elena's brood, for strong, filled holidays with din, mom's memory honored in annual Chicago vigils, her journal published as a mother's ark. Our loft, museum of memories, brimmed, walls layered with art from decades, shelves groaning under memoirs and awards. Yet, vitality's ebb whispered. Luca's hands, gnarled from brushes, trembled on fine lines. My eyes, specs perched, strained at screens. We adapted gracefully, voice-to-text for writing, adaptive tools for painting, turning limits to lenses. Silver skills, Luca joked, demoing a stylus rigged for arthritic grips. A joint graphic novel emerged, final strokes, vignettes of elder queerness, cruise ships to sapphic isles, wisdom shared in support circles, illustrated collaboratively, his watercolors my vectors. Health's gauntlet struck mid-project, my diagnosis, early Parkinson's, a subtle thief of steadiness. Tremors started faint, spoon clinking coffee cup, escalating to shuffles on cobblestones. Luca's research was relentless, specialists consulted, trials trialed, yoga and Tai Chi our arsenal. We'll dance through it, he vowed, leading slow waltzes in the kitchen, his steps guiding my falter. Intimacy shifted tender, positions propped with pillows, touches prolonged, pleasure in proximity over prowess. Your body's still my favorite canvas, I whispered, his laugh rumbling as fingers intertwined, climaxes quiet quakes of connection. Foundation evolved under Kai's vision, us as emeritus, advising boards, keynote NG retrospectives. A gala in our honor, Coliseum lit dramatic, drew luminaries, politicians pledging protections, artists unveiling tributes. Speeches lauded our 40 years of fire, but vulnerability pierced, Luca's voice cracking on Marco's redemption arc, rehabbed, now mentoring inmates, my tremor waving off applause. Backstage, embrace fierce. We did good, he murmured. Tears affirmed, ripples infinite, from one rescue to revolution sparked. Grandkids multiplied joys, Kai's twins, bilingual whirlwinds, visiting for Nano Luca's paint parties, Elena's youngest, a Spitfire artist, aping Lila's sketches. Holidays blended. Thanksgiving in Trastevere with turkey tiramisu, Passover in Chicago with matzo murals. Nero's lineage, a parade of pups, kept feet lively. Vespa's successor, a wise-eyed mutt named Echo, sensed my shakes, leaning steady. Crisis crested autumnal. Wildfires ravaging California queer communes. Foundation mobilizing aid. Funds funneled, volunteers vetted. We joined remotely, coordinating from the loft, but urge pulled. Fly out, hands-on. Doctors demurred, my mobility waning, but Luca's no cages won. LA bound. We waded ash-choked streets, distributing kits, hugging survivors whose homes mirrored our early struggles. One elder, 90 and flamboyant, clutched Luca. You boys give hope. Exhausted, hotel nights raw. His massages easing my rigidity, my stories soothing his fatigue, love's labor unlabored. Recovery's glow-birthed, resilient roots. Eco-art collectives rebuilding with queer lens. Solar studios, garden galleries. Kai's doc on it. Ashes to Arches. Oscar-nominated. Our cameos wry footnotes. Personally, Tremors tamed with meds, but legacy loomed. Estate planning. Will's weaving foundation into fabric. What mark? I pondered one eve, stargazing from roof. Lucas squeezed my hand. The heart you mended, mine first. Winter's gift. A pilgrimage. Family en masse to Rome. Elena's clan. Kai's crew. Lila and Miko with partners. Christmas in the piazza. Lights twinkling like our history. Feast sprawling. Panettone and pumpkin pie. Carols and English-Italian mash. Sophia, now teen firebrand, led a toast. To Zios, who taught us love wins. Laughter, tears, dances, my shuffle matched by grandkids' giggles, Luca's arm my axis. Spring heralded closure's grace. Our retrospective, Maxi sprawling with 6 decades works. Early murals to late hybrids, timelines tracing tandem. Opening night, thronged, we wandered hand-led, anecdotes animating pieces. Closing speech, joint, we were lost once. Found each other, built this. Applause thundered, but quiet afterglow mattered. Loft return, wine by fire, bodies nestled, whispers weaving futures. Ailments advance slowed us. Luca's hip replacement, my cane a stylish companion, but spirit soared. We mentored virtually, pixels and prose undimmed, traveled vicariously via grantees' tales. 60th birthday bash, surprise Vespa tour, me strapped tandem, wind whipping, Luca's back my shield. Ended in picnic redux, that first piazza. As leaves turned, we walked Tiber paths, echo at heel, sunset gilding waters. Best plot twist, Luca asked, halting for my breath. You. I replied, kiss salt-kissed. Always. In that bend, eternal city humming, we stood, strangers turned sages, lives a testament. Love, kitsch tin as core, crafts meaning from chaos, humanity from heartbeats. Forever changed, forever changing, one embrace at a time.